Welcome to Eye on America. I'm Michelle Miller. Today we meet Americans taking on some of the country's biggest issues. In Florida's Wild Corridor, we explore efforts to preserve the nearly extinct panther. And in Chicago, we sit down for an exclusive interview with former President Obama to talk about his new initiative for reducing violence and increasing graduation rates. But we begin on a somber note. It's been 1 year since the racially motivated attack at a grocery store in Buffalo, New York, where the community is still healing in many ways. Jerika Duncan sat down with 4 people impacted by the tragedy to reflect on that day.
If you could finish the statement, the last year has been
hard.
Hard?
Very hard.
Yeah.
Heartbreaking.
Very difficult, overwhelming.
Burdensome.
Burdensome.
It's been very heavy.
Yeah.
The last year.
The day of the massacre, Fragrance Harris Stanfield was working at the Tops grocery store along with her 20-year-old daughter.
I didn't die that day, my daughter didn't die that day, but this man walked past her twice while she's sitting, hiding in the store. I had no idea if she was alive or dead. I heard the gunshots coming closer. I did not think I was making it out.
What did you do?
I don't know. My brain still hasn't allowed me to see. I literally gave myself permission and like, it's okay, you can go. You've done what you're supposed to do. It's over.
I don't ever want to go through nothing like that ever again. That was horrible.
Jerome Bridges barricaded employees and customers in a conference room to stay safe that day. When Tops reopened 2 months after the attack, he went back to work.
What made me go back? 2 people. Once I found out her son was all right, that's when I decided to go back to work. His mother, God rest her soul, I spoke to his mother 20 minutes before the guy came into the store. That's what she always used to lift my spirits up. She was a nice, kind lady, and I wanted to shake your hand. And you're welcome.
A year is not a long time. Have you all had time to grieve?
No.
Absolutely not. No.
For me, for Zaire, it's like it happened yesterday. Every day, it's like it happened yesterday.
Yeah, so, all of this attention being paid to the 1 year anniversary, remembrance, ceremonies, and I guess people, the community needs to, and that's good for some people. But for me, I don't need help remembering. My problem is I can't forget.
This is every day for us.
Every day, all day, every day.
Every day.
Are there things that have stayed the same that you wish changed?
White supremacy is alive and well.
Well,
Discrimination, racism, all of those things are still pervasive in our society, in our community, you know what I'm saying? So many of those things have not changed.
They haven't. After 5/14, the country heard it. They saw racism out there in their faces, but there hasn't really been any change to it, right? We're not really digging deep into domestic terrorism as a nation and dealing with it, right? And so, it's still the same. What has changed? We've changed, right? 5/14 changed each one of us, right? In different ways. And we've seen that we have to be the solution. Right. We now know, and others in the community now know their power. And they know they have a voice and they can make change in their neighborhood, on their streets. And so that's definitely what's changed, because I know it changed me.
Ahead, the elusive Florida Panther appears to be making a comeback with the help of a surprising ally. That story is next. We now take you along on a search for the so-called ghost cat in a stretch of Florida's wild and undeveloped land. Manuel Bajorquez rode along with conservationists and ranchers who are united in the effort to save the Florida panther.
A panther just walked out.
Reclusive and elusive, the Florida panther is often called the ghost cat. To see one, it's either a zoo or the rare and accidental encounter.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Holy sh**.
I've only ever seen 2 Florida panthers in the wild with my own eyes.
They're that elusive.
They're completely elusive. There could be one looking at us somewhere in these cypress trees right now, but we'll never see it. This project has been the hardest thing I've ever attempted.
Wildlife photographer Carlton Ward has been hunting panthers digitally for 20 years. With elaborate camera traps in the swampy wilds, Ward has captured panther images as never before. The Nat Geo film intimately showcases the struggle for survival.
Panthers need a lot of land. A single male panther needs a home range of up to 200 square miles. That's 4 times the size of Miami for a single panther.
We met Ward at the edge of what's called the Florida Wildlife Corridor, a project he founded. It's a mosaic of still wild and undeveloped land stitched together and occasionally assisted with infrastructure. He says it's the vital link in the panther's survival story.
It takes all the adjacent properties working together as a connected whole, because it takes the nature preserve and the cattle ranch and the citrus grove and the timber farm and the state forest all together as this connected green space that panthers call home.
Human conflict drove panthers to the brink. First, livestock ranchers removed big cats by any means necessary. East of the Mississippi, panthers were eventually driven into a tiny swampy corner of Florida. Next came rampant urban sprawl and the often fatal encounters that came with it.
Vehicle collision is number 1, but in the last 2 weeks we have 3.
The ghost cat almost vanished entirely.
In the early 80s and 1990s, there were probably only about 20 to 30 Florida panthers left in the wild.
I mean, that's pretty close to extinct.
Yeah, it's about as close as you can get.
Dave Honorato is a panther biologist with Florida Fish and Wildlife. He's among the conservationists that helped bring them back from the brink.
It looks like wilderness, but we're not very far from I-75.
No, pumas and panthers are amazingly adaptable, and so they will come up to what we call the urban-wildlife interface.
But to survive, the cats may need to go further. For decades, the imposing Caloosahatchee River prevented panthers from moving north of the Everglades.
And that had been the dividing line for 5 decades, where no female panthers had been seen north of that river since 1973.
So we've had nothing break the beam since last Friday.
But then, a small miracle. Somehow, a female panther north of the river, nicknamed Babs.
She's amazing.
She's a pioneer. She swam the river.
For Ward, Babs became an obsession.
Why is it so important for you to capture a crystal clear, beautiful image?
People connect with beauty. People connect with their hearts. And to see the eyes of these panthers and to see the beauty of the habitat and the place where they live.
Now, with their numbers creeping above 200, Florida panthers have a new and unlikely ally.
Come in.
Yes, cattle ranchers. At least some ranchers, like Elton Langford.
Protecting the panther also protects your way of life.
Yes, sir, it does.
He says the same development that threatens panthers might make ranchers an endangered species.
If you lose in habitat, you lose in everything. You know, if you think about it, we need to do our part as good stewards of the land.
Ward hopes the tide may finally be turning.
It is not California, it is not Texas, it is Florida.
Public opposition helped defeat a toll road once proposed right through panther territory, and there has been bipartisan government support and funding for the corridor. And Babs, well, here she is with one of her many cubs. It's believed she's already delivered multiple litters north of that river.
I want people to know that this Florida still exists, that we have wilderness and wild places that are as beautiful and inspiring as any place in the world. And then we have animals like the Florida panther that are still out there and need us for their survival.
We continue our discussion on the environment as farmers in Central California are battling severe flooding after months of drought. Jonathan Vigliotti witnesses what some farmers are doing to save their land.
California's Central Valley produces a quarter of the nation's food, but a brutal winter, a parade of violent storms scientists link to climate change, has led to this. Acre after acre, more than 150,000 in all, swamped. For so many crops, a total loss.
It's going to hurt. It's a lot of money.
Nader Malikan is a pistachio farmer. 99% of the nation's supply is grown here.
What's the value on that pain?
15 million probably right here.
15 million?
Yeah, that we've lost on 1,200 acres.
The estimated damage from the floods, $1 billion so far. Remarkably, an even greater danger awaits. Tulare Lake, which was drained a century ago and didn't even exist a few months ago, has returned with a vengeance. Perched just outside Corcoran, it looks like an ocean. And in the mountains above, one of California's largest snowpacks on record is starting to melt.
You kind of get an overwhelming sense of doom in a way. How do you stop this?
With a lot of dirt, says farmer Brandon Goodhart at Lakeshore Dairy.
You are looking at, we have what we've come to call the Great Wall of Stratford, and we got 15 feet of dirt piled up.
FEMA agents are on the ground assisting, but farmers say they are footing the bill to reinforce and add on to a nearly 15-mile-long levee so it can hold back the rising tide. There's nowhere safe enough.
This is where we house the milk cows.
Or large enough to move his barn of cows.
Is it possible where we're standing right now could be flooded out?
Yes.
Kings County Supervisor Doug Verboond says crews will finish the levee before the next major melt, but there's no guarantee it will hold.
Yeah, Mother Nature's in control. We're just, trying to put our finger in the dike as we go.
All hands are on deck while their hearts are sinking.
We're a family farm. The family's been doing this for generations, and I'd hate to be the one that's at the wheel and we lose it all.
Ahead, a conversation with the former president about supporting young men of color. This is Eye on America. We close our show with an initiative launched by former President Barack Obama. My Brother's Keeper Alliance was founded in 2014 to help boys and young men of color across the nation reach their full potential. Nate Burleson sat down with the 44th president for an exclusive interview about the alliance's impact and some of the most pressing issues facing the country.
It's never safe, no matter where you go. You got hustles popping 4.5s instead of 6.4s.
In the basement of this Baptist church on Chicago's South Side, they're working on a lot more than music.
All you hear is pop, 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 gunshot, gunshot. Who was that? That was Ricky.
Violence may inspire some of their lyrics, but this safe space is about personal connections, feeling seen and heard. Guitars Over Guns is a grassroots program that gives teens a chance to work on their lyrics, beats, and production skills.
Are you trying to do something upbeat? Can we do some storytelling? We're going to talk about what's going on in the world.
And mentors to help remind them of their potential.
Story of a young man in to make it out, gave his whole life to the game, even when he had his doubts.
It's one of many programs the Obama Foundation and its My Brother's Keeper initiative help support.
And that's what My Brother's Keeper is all about, helping more of our young people stay on track, providing the support they need to think more broadly about their future.
Nearly a decade later, some of that progress was shared on this stage in downtown Chicago.
Mr. Mayor, how you doing? What's going on, man?
Where the former president of the United States gathered community leaders from around the country, specifically Newark, Omaha, Tulsa, and Yonkers, New York, highlighting what is working in education and violence prevention in those places. Newark Mayor Ras Baraka.
We were able to experience 35% reduction last year just in shooting victims alone, which is historic for us. We're going to target you with resources, with job opportunities, with educational opportunities, with
love.
Alternative. That's right, with love, not just handcuffs. Right.
200 cities with varying degrees of success are making the effort to identify the barriers and knock those barriers away for so many of our young boys and young men of color so that they can succeed. Making sure they're prepared for school, making sure that there's a job waiting for them if they do the right thing, and then dealing with violence in their communities. The vast majority of these young people will succeed, and that will be good for all of us.
Gun violence is the #1 cause of death for children in this country. What is the radical solution? And do you believe there is a larger issue at hand that causes fractures among us in this country?
We are unique among advanced, developed nations in tolerating, on a routine basis, gun violence in the form of shootings, mass shootings, suicides. In Australia, you had one mass shooting 50 years ago, and they said, oh, we're not doing that anymore. That is normally how you would expect a society to respond when your children are at risk.
Why is it so hard for us to do that?
Look, I think somehow, and there are a lot of historical reasons for this, gun ownership in this country became an ideological issue and a partisan issue in ways that it shouldn't be. It has become sort of a proxy for arguments about our culture wars. Instead of thinking about it in a very pragmatic way, we end up really arguing about identity and emotion and all kinds of stuff that does not have to do with keeping our children safe. Even in the absence of action at the federal level, you are still seeing communities able to reduce violence by dealing with not just access to guns, but just as importantly, making sure that the young people in these communities feel as if they've got somebody who's paying attention to them. We don't have room for cynicism, and we can't give up.
Hey, what's happening, people?
There was no cynicism in this room when the former president dropped by.
Call me natural cause I'm black, this is so rap. Lyrics dripping off the lips like honey slap. These brothers stick to me like a bad rap.
Truthfully, I'm contemplating making OnlyFans. My OnlyFans would probably look at me like, are you crazy, man? But I'm just trying to make some bands and maybe help my mama see Jamaica, man. Talk to Poverty like, see you later, man.
Maybe a couple of you just tell me a little bit about how you came to know about the program, why it's been important to you, the kinds of things that you've been doing. Go ahead.
After coming from Lake Geneva, I think it was, he ended up inviting me to the studio.
Okay.
And when I came in, it was a day that I didn't have school, and he thought that I was suspended from school, so he wouldn't let me record music until he got the approval. Until he got the approval.
You're skipping class.
He was like, yeah, he was like, you can sit over here and do your work. You know, you can chill in the studio all day, but you gotta definitely, I gotta get an approval first. When he got the approval, I was able to record.
Okay.
So
All right.
I've been since then.
Fantastic.
Seeing the former president of the United States walk in here and show how much he's invested, not just in what you guys are doing here, but also this community. What did that mean to you?
I don't know, it just kind of showed me somebody cares, or it's like it's easier to reach. You know, it's not like you just speaking to the community, or you just like, you're not just showing your face to the community on camera. And so for him to come in, shake everybody's hand, you know, listen to the raps, actually give feedback, it meant a lot.
Haters praying for my stress, hoping that I break a sweat. Elohim's my source, so I'm passing every single test.
When we went to that program and you saw this incredible talent in a church basement, making music, and Nate, I think you felt it too. What was most powerful about it was seeing these young men really looking out for each other. Getting more of that in our communities is also going to make a difference. And that's what we're demonstrating through these model communities of My Brother's Keeper. It's a matter of want to on the part of the broader society.
You know, I'm a father of a 19-year-old, 17-year-old, a 12-year-old, and I am an optimistic man. But I find myself falling into this space where I have concern about the country that they will inherit once I'm gone. Post-presidency, what about this country keeps you up at night?
The thing that I'm most worried about is the degree to which we now have a divided conversation, in part because we have a divided media, right? So I'm much older than you, Nate.
You don't look it, though.
That's what I was fishing for. But when I was coming up, you had 3 TV stations.
Yeah.
And people were getting a similar sense of what is true and what isn't, what was real and what was not. Today, what I'm most concerned about is the fact that because of the splintering of the media, we almost occupy different realities. If something happens, in the past, everybody could say, all right, we may disagree on how to solve it, but at least we all agree that, yeah, that's an issue. Now, people will say, well, that didn't happen, or I don't believe that. And one of, I think, the goals of the Obama Foundation and one of the goals of my post-presidency is how do we return to that common conversation? How can we have a common set of facts? We may disagree on gun violence in terms of what the best prescriptions are, but we can't deny the data that says the United States has levels of gun violence that are 5, 10, 15 times more than other countries.
Yep.
So if we say that it's just a mental health problem, well, it's not like there aren't people with mental health problems in those other countries. What's the difference?
Right.
This is probably the difference. Now, we can have a debate, but at least we've agreed on some facts.
For more stories like these and live coverage of breaking news 24/7, stream us right here on CBS News. I'm Michelle Miller. Thank you for watching Eye on America.
This episode of Eye on America is sponsored by Prudential. Plan, invest, insure. Retire with Prudential.